Oh no, part 2. I'm really sorry, guys. It only gets worse from here. Again, please don't go sending this guy any hate, as it's just not needed. And as always, be respectful in the comments, as these people need our help to overcome their ignorant worldview, as limited as it is. Let's get this over with, shall we? I recommend the thickest oven mitts you can find for the inevitable face palming, and also like, share, and all that before we begin, as you may not be in the state of mind to do so by the end.
If the sun barely looks bigger than the other stars from Saturn, why is it able to completely light it up so that we can see it from Earth?
The sun is really, really, really bright, and there is nothing to prevent the light from reaching the outer planets.
And if something merely the size of the other stars can do that, why is the backside of Saturn not lit up by the billions of stars on the other side? And why are there dark sides to any objects in the solar system?
The other stars are really, really, really unbelievably far away. And there's a lot to restrict the passage of light, such as interstellar dust, blocking the light. The light from the other stars does reach the planets, but the amount is so minute when compared to that of our star that you can't actually see it. Much like how we can see the stars in the night sky, but again, the amount is minuscule.
If moonlight reflects the warm light of the sun, why is moonlight measurably cold? Why is it warmer in the shadows at night when it's the exact opposite of what we experience in the sunlight during the day?
The sun is essentially a massive, and I mean massive, fusion reactor producing heat and light. The actual physics would be wasted on you at this point. The light of the moon is a reflection of the sun's light. Reflected light doesn't produce heat. Most of the infrared light, the heat, is absorbed by the moon, and only the visible light is reflected. A simple way to test this is to hold a candle in front of a mirror and touch the reflection. It'll be as cold as the mirror, but still give off the same amount of light.
How is it possible that our positive atmosphere sticks to this ball right next to the negative vacuum of space without a barrier in between?
Gravity is the simplest explanation. You've made it clear that your understanding of physics is selective at best, but I'll attempt to explain it in a way you should understand. The term vacuum in this case isn't like a vacuum cleaner. It doesn't suck everything away. If that were the case, no planets would have atmospheres, even though you think there's something else entirely.
How is it that people claim to see lights in the sky that are the International Space Station and other satellites when they do not have lights on them? And due to their supposed distance off the ground, the sun wouldn't have the ability to reflect light off them.
This graphic does nothing but show your lack of understanding of the scale of objects. The sun is massive compared to the Earth. It's also much, much further away. Add into that the refraction through the atmosphere, and you can see the ISS quite clearly on a clear night. But as you watch it, it will fade into the darkness, which is why it is often mistaken for a UFO. It's the same with other satellites. They may be small, but against the blackness of space, there's little to compete with.
Let alone the fact that I do not believe you could see a satellite, something the size of a pickup truck, 250 miles away, even if it was lit by the sun. That's like saying you could see a vehicle in Oklahoma City while standing in Dallas.
Looking up at the night sky is very different than trying to look for small objects against the backdrop of a much, much larger object. It is far easier to see a small white object against a background of black than it is to see a small coloured object against the background of many different colours. This is why camouflage is so effective.
How is it we supposedly went to the moon 50 years ago, but now we can't leave low Earth
That's
orbit?
the farthest that we can go.
50 years ago, there was more funding as the US wanted to beat the USSR to get to the moon. This was during wartime and the stakes were a lot higher. Granted, it was the Cold War, but it was still a war.
Why are the pictures of Earth from space described as composite images, using ground-based observations and Photoshop to fill in the gaps?
A composite image is exactly that. a composition of numerous images stitched together to form a complete picture. None of the pictures of Earth used ground-based observations. Again, your lack of understanding of the scale of things comes into play here. You already mentioned how tiny satellites are, and those tiny things need to take thousands of pictures to create a complete image.
Why was all the original moon footage and telemetry data destroyed?
This is a common argument. It wasn't destroyed. It was simply reused, as back then, NASA assumed that the budget for such missions would continue, and the original information would be improved upon, so there was no need to keep it. Besides, we still have that data in the form of...
Why is NASA constantly getting caught on live feeds with men in the background of models, harnesses on the International Space Station, and bubbles and scuba gear in space like they're filming spacewalks in a pool?
There have never been any men in the background, nor are there strings. If Hollywood can create ultra-realistic space movies, don't you think that the US government could create an even better one for these so-called hoaxes? Also, that last image you showed, with the bubbles and water, is from the Neutral Buoyancy Lab that NASA uses to train astronauts, as there is nowhere on Earth that can simulate low gravity, no atmosphere conditions.
Why is YouTube hiding true flat Earth content and promoting the ridiculous false perception of the floating pancake?
YouTube is a privately owned company and doesn't have to adhere to any government regulations. They also stated that to quell the spread of misinformation, that they would remove any outlandish conspiracy channels.
You're dealing with all these conspiracy theorists on your platform.
So the first way is by demoting low-quality content and promoting more authoritative content, and the second is by providing more transparency for users. So we're introducing boxes that provide factual information at the top of results that have shown themselves to turn up a lot of information that is counterfactual, such as searching for the Earth is flat on YouTube, where you see a lot of...
Your response is to put a box saying, nope, the Earth is not flat.
Correct.
Okay.
And lastly, if we are so sure about this spinning ball heliocentric model, why are experts saying things like this?
So everything we know about the universe, what we're made of, galaxies, stars, planets, that's all right here. So according to this chart, we are 96% stupid.
Not knowing is what science is all about, the search for knowledge and information. What Neil deGrasse Tyson said here was wrong. We're not 96% stupid. Not knowing something doesn't make someone stupid. Asserting things that are known to be false does.
And just so you know, the Globe side has complex answers to all these.
Well, they're really not that complex. It's just that you either can't understand them, or they don't align with what you think, therefore they must be wrong.
But it's time you start evaluating evidence for yourself instead of simply accepting someone else's opinion of it. We all have the same evidence. It's your worldview and your perception of the source that determines your interpretation of that evidence.
Here's the thing about evidence and facts. They really don't care about your opinion. They're simply facts. Saying a fact is wrong doesn't negate the fact. It simply makes you appear more ignorant.
The experts are not any closer to the stars than you are. You have the ability to trust your senses and come up with conclusions for yourself.
So, because the Earth appears to be flat, we should conclude that it is? Just because you think something doesn't make it correct or true. I don't want to spout psychology, as you've proven your understanding of the real world is very limited, but this is classic Dunning-Kruger effect behavior.
So what do flat earthers believe? Well, I'll caveat with we do not have it all figured out, nor do we claim to.
Nor will you ever. You can't even agree on a basic model. You can't explain the seasons. You think there is a Game of Thrones style wall at the edge of the world.
However, we can prove that there are major issues with the globe model, and that is why we are searching for other solutions and other models which can support the phenomena and science we repeatedly observe.
Just one. I would like just one problem with the globe model, as you put it. You repeatedly observe that the Earth is a globe every single day. Not one shred of evidence has ever been provided to show a flat Earth.
Well, this is the best representation I have so far.
Really? How come I can go outside right now and see the moon and the sun together? What causes eclipses, both solar and lunar? Why is my great nation stretched to all hell?
We believe the center of our motionless world is the North Pole, and an explorer or traveler can still circumnavigate this world from east to west or west to east by performing clockwise or counterclockwise circles around the North Pole. Antarctica is not a continent at the bottom of the globe, but rather a continental ice shelf and mountain range that acts as a shoreline that holds the waters in and potentially supports the dome above, so no falling off the edge.
If this were the case, what's on the other side of these mountains? What is this dome comprised of?
The sun, moon, and stars are simply lights in the sky. They are smaller, closer, located inside the Earth's system. They are not objects floating through space that are similar to the Earth. They are part of the Earth, so no comparing us to them. There are many things that people think disprove this model, thus concluding they live on a ball, and there's no way I can address all of them, but here's some of the most common objections. People say that other planets are round, but as I mentioned earlier, we believe that planets are just lights in the sky, not places you can go.
So all those billions of dollars spent on the probes and research learned from them, not to mention the fantastic images sent back, were all for nothing? They were all fakes? The thousands of employees and researchers who spent most of their adult lives developing the means to travel to the outer planets have wasted their lives? That is the most disrespectful excuse you or any flat earther can ever give. You take away from the accomplishments of these men and women.
Simply wandering stars that are part of our system, not outside it. Space as you think of it is a lie.
That whole sentence, and in fact your entire video, is just one big lie. Oh, my apologies, friends, but I have to leave it there and do a part 3. While recording this, I actually thought that I could do this in just 2 parts, but the ignorance is strong in this one. Next time, we come to the root of all flat earth arguments in the thrilling conclusion. Thank you all for watching. As always, a special thank you to Purple Haze and Ghostface, whose continual support through these stressful times have helped immensely. Thank you to all my other Patreon supporters too. You too can help by joining the Patreon, grabbing some merch, or simply sharing stories and videos over on the subreddit. Until next time, friends, good night.